Welcome, wanderers of the shadowed vale, to another descent into the throne of nightmares. I am your reluctant guide through the fog-shrouded archives of forgotten horrors, where the roots of old oaks twist like the veins of the restless dead, and the soil drinks deep of secrets long buried. Tonight, we do not chase ghosts in empty halls or unravel the frayed threads of vanished bloodlines. No, dear listener, we step into the heart of a living curse, a tale woven from the sweat-soaked cotton fields of antebellum Georgia, where the line between master and monster blurred into something far more profane. Imagine, if you dare, the year 1840. The air hangs heavy with the humid breath of summer, thick as the chains that rattle in the underbrush. The Chattahoochee River slithers through the red clay hills like a serpent uncoiling, its waters stained the color of rust and regret. Plantations sprawl like festering wounds across the landscape, grand white, columned facades masking cellars, where screams echo like prayers unanswered. This is the South at its zenith of cruelty, where the lash cracks like thunder, and human souls are tullied like bales of cotton on ledgers stained with ink and blood. Our story coils around one such estate, Blackthorn Manor, perched on the outskirts of Macon, Georgia, where the pecan groves whisper warnings to those who listen too closely. It is here, amid the cicada's relentless dirge and the firefly's mocking glow, that we meet her Eliza Blackthorn, the mistress of the manor, a woman whose beauty was said to rival the magnolias in bloom, but whose heart festered like the galls on those same trees. Born Eliza Hargrove in 1802 to a Charleston shipping magnate, she wed Josiah Blackthorn in 1825, inheriting not just his name, but his sprawling 200-acre domain and its 150 souls, men, women, and children bound in perpetual twilight. But Eliza was no mere ornament in silk and lace. Widowed by yellow fever in 1838, she seized the reins with a grip that turned knuckles white. Whispers in Macon Tavern spoke of her as the Iron Widow, a term laced with both awe and unease. She managed the fields with an overseer's whip in her gloved hand, her emerald eyes scanning the horizon for threats to her empire. Yet, it was not the cotton or the corn that fueled her darkest appetites. No, Eliza Blackthorn harbored a ritual more intimate, more insidious, a claiming that bound not just body, but soul. You see, in the shadowed corners of Blackthorn Manor, where the slave quarters huddled like frightened animals under the eaves, Eliza did not simply own her chattel. She claimed them. Everyone destined for the auction block, be they field hands, too weary to yield their quota, house girls whose tongues grew sharp with unspoken resentment, or sturdy bucks eyed by rival planters, passed first through her chambers. It was a rite she called the binding, a nocturnal sacrament where she, in the flickering light of beeswax candles scented with myrrh and grave dirt, would draw them into her web. Not for pleasure, mind you, though the line blurs in such depravities. No, it was for power, for a curse, some said, whispered down from her Hargrove ancestors, who dabbled in the obeah rites of Caribbean imports and the hoodoo shadows of Gullah shores. The hook, my shadowed kin, lies in the why. Why would a woman of such station debase herself with the very property she scorned? Why mark each soul with her touch before consigning them to strangers' chains? The ledgers of Blackthorn Manor hold the key yellowed pages filled with cryptic notations. Claimed under the harvest moon, marked for swift sale, value enhanced by 10%. But deeper still, in a locked cedar chest beneath her four-poster bed, laid journals bound in human vellum, or so the rumors went, detailing visions Eliza, plagued by dreams of her bloodline's dilution, of the Blackthorn name fading like mist at dawn. She believed, or so the fragments suggest, that by claiming each slave, she infused them with her essence, a spectral tether that haunted their new owners, sowing discord, illness, and ruin, a curse exported with every auctioneer's gavel. Let me paint the scene for you, listener. Picture the night of August 12, 1840. The moon hangs low, bloated and blood orange, casting the manor in a hellish rouge. Thunderheads bruise the sky, and the air tastes of ozone and fear. In the big house, Eliza paces her boudoir, her gown of black taffeta rustling like dry leaves over a fresh dug grave. The room is a reliquary of the macabre. Walls papered in faded fleur-de-lis, a vanity cluttered with vials of quicksilver and powdered bone, a four-poster bed draped in mosquito netting that billows like shrouds. She has selected her quarry, a young woman named Livia, 22 years old, with skin like polished ebony and eyes that hold the fire of stolen African stars. Livia, caught whispering abolitionist hymns to the children in the quarters, is to be sold at dawn to a trader bound for New Orleans. The overseer, a hulking brute named Harlan Crow, drags her up the back stairs, his boots thudding like heartbeats on the polished oak. Livia's wrists are bound with silk cords, Eliza's mercy or her mockery, and her mouth gagged with a lace handkerchief to stifle cries that might wake the hounds. They enter the chamber, and Harlan retreats, his face pale as way, muttering prayers under his breath. Eliza turns, her silhouette sharp against the candle flame, and smiles, a predator's crescent, all teeth and shadow. "Come, child," she murmurs, her voice a silken noose. The night claims what the day discards. What transpires in that room is not for the faint of heart. It is a violation layered upon violation, a dance of dominance where Eliza whispers incantations in a tongue half French, half forbidden, her fingers tracing sigils on Livia's skin with oils distilled from nightshade and tears. Hours pass, marked only by the drip of wax and the distant howl of wind through the chimneys. When dawn bleeds across the horizon, Livia is returned to the holding pen, her spirit fractured, a brand invisible to the eye but searing to the soul. By noon, she stands on the auction block in Macon's Market Square, her price fetched higher than expected to $150, a sum Eliza attributes to the luster of my mark. But oh, the echoes. In the weeks that follow, reports trickle back. Livia's new master in the Bayou Delta wakes to nightmares of a woman's laughter in the cypress knees. His crops wither under phantom frosts. His wife miscarries under a moon the color of rust. Coincidence? Or the first thread of Eliza's web unfurling? This, wanderers, is but the overture to our symphony of shadows. As we delve deeper, you will feel the chill of blackthorn's fog on your skin, hear the rattle of chains in your sleep, taste the bitter ash of a history that refuses to stay buried. For in Eliza Blackthorn's Georgia, claiming was not mere whim, it was legacy, it was damnation, it was the throne upon which nightmares are crowned. Stay with me, if your courage holds. The harvest moon rises, and the binding begins. Let us now descend, my companions in the dark, into the marrow of this tale. The year is 1839, the eve of Eliza's widowhood, and Blackthorn Manor pulses with the rhythm of coerced life. Josiah Blackthorn, that gaunt patrician with his mutton chops and malaria-yellowed skin, lies abed in the east wing, his breaths ragged as torn sailcloth. The fever has come for him, as it did his father before, a miasma rising from the swamps that no quinine tonic can quell. Eliza tends him not with the soft hands of a grieving wife, but with the calculating gaze of a chessmaster eyeing a fallen king. The manor itself is a character in this tragedy, a neoclassical behemoth built in 1795 on land wrested from the Creek Nation, its columns carved from heart pine quarried by the first wave of enslaved arrivals. The grounds sprawl 200 acres, cotton fields that stretch to the horizon like a sea of bleached bones, tobacco barns sagging under their own weight, a sugar mill whose gears grind like the jaws of some subterranean beast. The slave quarters, 30 cabins of weathered cypress, cluster behind the kitchens, their chimneys belching smoke that mingles with the morning mist. Here, 150 souls eke out existence, field hands like old Tobias, whose back is a map of scars from Josiah's rages, house servants such as young Mira, whose nimble fingers mend hems by candlelight, and the children, wide-eyed wraiths scampering between the legs of adults too broken to shield them. Eliza moves among them like a spectre in muslin, her presence announced by the jingle of her chatelaine, keys to the smokehouse, the root cellar, the iron shackles in the barn. She is 37 now, her raven hair streaked with the first silvers of stress, her figure still lithe from horseback rides through the brambles. But her eyes, those verdant pools flecked with gold, betray the storm within. Plagued since girlhood by visions, she confides in no one, Not even her diary of the Hargrove curse, a lineage tainted by a great-grandmother's pact with a Obeah woman in Santo Domingo, trading fertility for fortune. The blood must bind or the line dissolves, the spectral voice intones in her dreams, night after night, until she wakes drenched in sweat, the sheets twisted like nooses. Josiah's death on All Hallows Eve marks the turning point. As the parson drones Psalms 23 over the casket, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow," Eliza stands dry-eyed, her mind already tallying inventories. The funeral feast is a farce of southern opulence, ham glazed in sorghum, cornbread studded with pecans, Madeira wine flowing like the river Styx. Planters from Augusta to Savannah arrive in carriages drawn by dappled greys, their wives fanning themselves with palmetto leaves, gossiping of Eliza's unladylike vigor. But beneath the crystal chandeliers, Harlan Crove the overseer, a transplanted Virginian with a face like chewed leather and a bullwhip coiled at his belt, watches her with a mix of lust and fear. He knows the ledgers she pores over by lamplight, balancing debts against the human capital that swells with each birth. The first claiming comes swiftly in the bitter chill of November 1839. The victim, if we dare call him such, though all were victims in that hell, is Ezekiel, a blacksmith of 28, forged in the fires of Senegambia and tempered by 5 years under Josiah's boot. Tall as a pine, with shoulders broad from shoeing mules and mending plows, Ezekiel has grown restive, his hammer strikes ringing like rebellion in the forge. Whispers reach Eliza he forges not just irons, but secrets, abolitionist pamphlets hidden in horseshoes, passed to runaways via the underground's tendrils snaking from Quaker safe houses in Pennsylvania. She summons him at midnight, the appointed hour when the veil thins. Harlan drags him from his pallet in the quarters, where he sleeps beside his wife, Ruth, and their infant son, Amos. The boy wakes with a wail that pierces the fog, but Ruth is gagged with her own apron, her eyes blazing defiance as they bind Ezekiel's hands with hemp, rope scented with Eliza's lavender soap. Up the back stairs they ascend, past portraits of stern Blackthorn ancestors, whose painted eyes seem to follow, down corridors where gas lamps sputter like dying stars. Eliza awaits in her sanctum, the air heavy with incense patchouli and something sharper, like crushed wormwood. The room is transformed. Mirrors draped in black velvet to trap reflections, a circle of salt on the Persian rug, candles arranged in the sigils of her dreams, interlocking thorns encircling a chalice of red wine. She wears a shift of sheer cambric, her hair unbound like a raven's wing, and bids Harlan depart with a flick of her wrist. "This is women's work now," she says, her voice a purr laced with arsenic. Ezekiel stands defiant, his chest heaving, muscles corded like live wires. "What sin have I, mistress, to earn this midnight judgment?" he asks, his accent thick with the rhythms of the Volta River. Eliza circles him slowly, trailing a fingernail along his arm, drawing a bead of blood that she anoints her lips with.
"So no, Ezekiel, sacrament.
You seek to steal what is mine, my property, my legacy. But before you go to the block, you will give me something in return. Your seed, your strength, bound to Blackthorn blood. Only then will the curse hold. What follows is a descent into the abyss. Eliza's claiming is no crude assault, it is ritual prolonged, a weaving of flesh and will. She speaks in tongues, fragments of Latin from her father's forbidden books, gullah chants overheard from the quarters, as she draws him into the bed's embrace. He resists at first, his body a fortress, but she wields tools, both tender and terrible promises of Ruth's safety, threats to Amos's tiny throat, potions slipped into the wine that dull the edges of fury. Hours bleed into dawn, the candles guttering low, and when it's done, Ezekiel is remade, marked with bruises like constellations, his spirit hollowed, a vessel for her venom. By morning, he is chained in the wagon bound for Milledgeville's auction yard. Eliza watches from the veranda, sipping chicory coffee, as the trader, a weasel-faced man named Silas Trotter, inspects his teeth and limbs like a horse at market. Prime stock. Silas grunts, forking over 1,200 to premium, he notes, for the fire in his eye makes him work harder. Eliza smiles into her cup, knowing the truth. The claiming has ignited not fire, but a slow-burning fuse. Word spreads in the quarters like kudzu. Ruth rocks Amos by the hearth, her lullabies turning to dirges, while old Tobias gathers the elders under the chinaberry tree. She takes more than the body. He mutters, carving protective runes into his walking stick. She takes the soul, plants it in the soil. Them sold ones, they carry her shadow south, and it grows, choking the life from new masters. The claimings accelerate through winter. Next is Mira, the 19-year-old laundress, caught filching a bolt of calico for a quilt, a spark of defiance in the monotony of starch and suds. Eliza claims her on a night when snow rare for Georgia dusts the pines like funeral rice. Mira's screams are muffled by the storm, her tears freezing on cheeks flushed with shame. Sold to a widow in Savannah for $600, she vanishes into the coastal fog. But letters reach Ruth months later, Mira's mistress, plagued by linens that bleed unwashable stains, mirrors cracking without cause. Then comes the twins, Abram and Leah, 24-year-olds from the same litter, skilled weavers whose looms birthed bolts of Osnaburg finer than any in Bibb County. They resist together, bound back in Eliza's chamber, their pleas intertwining like their threads. The claiming fractures them, Abram sold to Alabama mines, Leah to a Charleston brothel, and Blackthorn's output surges as if their agony fuels the warp and weft. By spring 1840, the pattern solidifies. Eliza's ledger blooms with entries, dates, names, essences extracted, projected curses. Harlan Crow, complicit but crumbling, drowns his guilt in corn liquor, his whip hand trembling on moonless nights. The quarters simmer with dread, births drop, illnesses spike, as if the manor's very timbers absorb the taint. And in Eliza's dreams, the Obib voice applauds, the web widens, daughter. Soon, all chains lead back to you, yet cracks form. A houseboy named Jem, 16 and sly as a fox, overhears Eliza's incantations, scribbling them on stolen foolscap. He slips notes to a circuit, riding preacher, Brother Elias, who preaches fire and brimstone in hidden revivals. Elias, a scarred veteran of Nat Turner's rebellion, smells sulfur in the air and vows to unravel the thread. As the dogwoods bloom blood red, the first hauntings stir. In New Orleans, Ezekiel's new owner wakes to find his safe rifled, gold vanished, a thorn pricked into his thumb that festers black. In Savannah, Mira's mistress claws at phantom itches, her skin erupting in welts shaped like sigils. The curse travels, listener on the wings of sold souls, a plague of whispers, shadows that steal sleep, fortunes that crumble like dry rot. Eliza, sensing the weave tightening, prepares her grandest binding, yet Livia, the hymn singer, whose voice could rally angels or demons. The harvest moon rises on August 12, and the manor holds its breath. Little does Eliza know, Jem lurks in the rafters, quill in hand, chronicling the rite. The web quivers, on the cusp of tear. The harvest moon of 1840 hangs like a scab over Blackthorn Manor, its light bleeding through the live oak's lacework branches, turning the world to rust and bone. Cicadas scream their swan song, a chorus of the damned, while in the quarters, mothers bolt doors against the night's hunger. Eliza Blackthorn, clad in a robe of crimson velvet that clings like congealed blood, descends the back stairs with the grace of a panther. Harlan Crow trails her, his lantern swinging like a pendulud noose, illuminating Livia's form in the holding shed, the young woman curled on straw, her skirts muddied from the struggle, eyes defiant as spear points. Tonight, we seal the fracture. Eliza breathes, her breath fogging the chill air. Livia is no stranger to the manor's cruelties, born on these very acres to a mother who died in childbed fever. She has sung spirituals that weave hope from despair, swing low, sweet chariot, comin' for to carry me home. But tonight, home is a receding dream. Harlan hauls her upright, his grip bruising as he murmurs apologies that taste of ash. Up they go, past the kitchens where embers glow like watchful eyes, into the sanctum where candles await, their flames leaping as if fed by anticipation. Jem, the houseboy, perches in the attic crawl space, heart hammering like a slaved drum. Through a knothole in the floorboards, he spies the rituals unfolding, Eliza tracing the salt circle with a silver athame, chanting in that guttural pidgin, Sang por sang, omba por omba, Lilian Atonel. Livia, unbound now, stands tall, her voice cracking the air. The Lord sees all, Mistress. Your throne be dust before his judgment. Eliza laughs, a sound like shattering crystal, and closes the distance. The claiming begins, a tangle of limbs and whispers, Livia's resistance a storm that rattles the windows, Eliza's dominance a tide that drowns. Jem scribbles furiously, ink blotting with sweat. She drinks from a cup of her own blood, smears it on the girl's throat, kisses like a serpent striking. The room grows cold as a tomb, shadows lengthening like fingers. Dawn finds Livia shattered, returned to the pen with a necklace of bruises blooming like nightshade. Eliza, sated and serene, breakfasts on poached quail eggs and black tea. Her journal entry crisp, Livia claimed. Voice bound to hymn of ruin, sale to Bayou trader valued N150, curse potency high. By noon, the auction wagon creaks away, Livia's silhouette shrinking against the heat haze, her final glance back a promise of reckoning. But the hauntings multiply, listener, like kudzu strangling the unwary. In the weeks that follow, reports slither back via traders' gossip and Silas Trotter's letters. Abram sold to Alabama's coal pits, whispers to his chain gang mates of a woman's touch that lingers, Eliza's phantom fingers, guiding the pickaxe, slips that maim foremen, cave-ins that swallow overseers whole. Leah, in Charleston's underbelly, sings no more, her clients wake to fevers that twist limbs into thorns, brothels emptying as patrons flee the cursed courtesan, and Ezekiel, deep in the delta's moor, forges not iron but omens. His master's mansion burns on a windless night, flames leaping in thorn-shaped patterns, the family spared only by a blacksmith's warning dream. Eliza revels in the chaos, her ledgers swelling with enhanced returns, slaves fetching premiums for their viga, though none speak of the hollow eyes, the tremors that plague the souled. Yet the manna frays at the edges, births falter, Ruth miscarries twice, blaming the mistress's shadow that clings to the well water. Tobias the elder brews tisanes of sassafras and rue, muttering hoodoo wards stolen from Gullah cooks long sold south. Harlan Crow unravels fastest, his whip lies idle, his nights haunted by visions of Eliza's form merging with the quarter's women, a hydra of flesh and fury. One stormy eve, he confronts her in the study. "This ain't Christian, ma'am. It's devil's work. The boys in town talk of witches, of blood rites from the islands." Eliza's response is icy. She claims him that night, not in ritual but in raw assertion, binding his loyalty with threats to his sister's farm up in Tennessee. Harlan emerges broken, his complicity a chain heavier than any he fastens on others. Enter brother Elias, the circuit rider, a spectre on a sway-backed mare, his sermons firebrands tossed into dry tinder. Arriving in Macon under cover of a tent revival, he preaches to the enslaved in coded parables, Moses parting the Red Sea, Pharaoh's plagues as portents. Jem slips him the first note in a hollowed Bible the mistress claims before she sells. Drinks the soul like wine. Elias's eyes narrow, scarred, cheeks twitching, he knows the scent of OB mingled with planter greed. He infiltrates Blackthorn under guise of mending fences, his Bible a shield, his tongue a scalpel. The deeper conflicts brew as autumn deepens. Eliza selects her next quarry to runaway returned, a man named Kofi, 35, captured near the Flint River with whip, marks fresh from his flight attempt. Kofi's claiming is brutal, he fights like a cornered panther, splintering a chair in the struggle, his roars shaking the rafters. Jem, witnessing from above, faints, tumbling through the knothole in a crash of dust and terror. Discovered by Harlan, he's flogged raw, but not before Elias smuggles him to a safe hollow in the Pecan Grove. There, under stars, pricked like nail-heads, Kofi recounts the horror to the gathered faithful. "She don't just take the body, preacher. She pours something in our cold as grave dirt, burnin' like hellfire. Makes you carry her everywhere like a demon riding your back." Elias nods, piecing the puzzle. Eliza's bindings are no mere perversion, but a folk magic amplified by her wealth, drawing from African diasporic survivals, twisted through white ambition. He vows exposure, penning letters to the Macon Telegraph under pseudonym, but the editor of Blackthorn Debtor spikes them. The mysterious elements coalesce in a haunting crescendo. On All Souls' Night, the quarters erupt in pandemonium, shadows detach from walls, coalescing into Eliza's likeness, multiple, mocking, caressing the sleeping with thorn-pricked fingers. Children wake screaming of the lady in red, their tiny bodies marked with sigils that fade by morn. Ruth sees Ruth's ghost, no, her own reflection in the wash basin, but with Eliza's eyes beckoning Imos to the river. Tobias collapses by the forge, whispering of ancestral spirits rising, demanding blood for blood. Eliza, undeterred, escalates. She claims a mother-daughter pair, Sella and her girl child of 12, too young. Even Harlan protests, but Eliza's madness knows no bounds. The ritual spans 2 nights, the manor quaking as if in labor, lightning etching thorns across the sky. Sold to a Georgia coastal plantation, Sella's new life unravels in weeks. The owner's hounds turn on him, tearing flesh in thorn-patterned wounds. His wife births a stillborn with emerald eyes. Brother Elias strikes back. With Jem's aid, he steals a journal page during a supper raid, Eliza's confessions of the Hargrove Pact, the Obeah woman's demand for a harvest of souls to feed the line. He rallies the quarters, a midnight vigil under the Chanterbury, voices rising in, wade in the water, hands linked in a chain stronger than iron. But Eliza senses the rift. Harlan, dispatched to scatter the gathering, instead defects, his whip turned to Elias's hand. The climax builds on a frost-kissed December dawn. Livia's curse manifests, her Bayou master arrives at Blackthorn's gates, face gaunt as death, babbling of hymns sung by cypress ghosts, his fortune drowned in the Mississippi's sudden flood. He begs repurchase, but Eliza refuses, her laughter echoing as he flees. That night, the hauntings converge, the manor alive with whispers, windows shattering in thorn shapes, Eliza's chambers filling with the scent of burning cotton and blood. Jem, Elias, and a cadre of the bold slip into the study, torch in hand, to burn the ledgers. But Eliza awaits, a thame gleaming. You weave against the web, she hisses, lunging. Chaos erupts, Kofi's ghost, or is it the curse's echo, manifests a shadow that pins Harlan as he turns traitor. Elias grapples her, Bible verses clashing with incantations, until a gunshot Tobias from the doorway, his ancient musket barking. Eliza falls, not dead but wounded, blood blooming like poppies on her breast. The ledgers blaze, smoke curling like vengeful spirits. But as the flames die, she rises, laughing, the wound a mere scratch. The binding holds eternal, she whispers, vanishing into the fog-shrouded woods. The quarters empty that night, runaways scattering north, Elias leading a remnant to freedom's edge. Blackthorn Manor stands silent, its fields fallow, cursed to this day. But Eliza, whispers say she roams the byways, a hitchhiker in widow's weeds, claiming wanderers before they cross state lines. The web endures, listener, threads invisible but unbreakable, sleep lightly. To grasp the thorns of Eliza Blackthorn's tale, we must root ourselves in the red clay of history, where fact and folklore entwine like vines on a gibbet. The 1840s in Georgia were the nadir of American bondage, a epoch when slavery swelled from economic necessity to cultural sacrament, its tendrils choking the young republic's soul. By 1840, Georgia's enslaved population numbered over 280,000, nearly half the state's inhabitants, toiling on 1,000-acre plantations that churned cotton like a mill grinding bones. Mackinac Tale's nexus was a nexus of commerce, steamboats chugging the emoji, ferrying human cargo to New Orleans, more auction blocks ringing with gavels that severed families like scythers through wheat. White women, far from passive violets, were architects of this edifice. Stephanie E. Jones Rogers, they were her property, unveils the veil. By 1830, women owned 1/3 of enslaved people in the South, inheriting them as brides' gifts or widows' dowers. In Georgia, figures like Eliza were legion. Rachel O'Connor in Louisiana Toledo increases with chilling precision, while Georgia's Charity Ramsey sold children for insolence, her depositions cold as ledger ink. Antenuptial contracts shielded their claims. Maria Betts of Georgia wielded deeds like weapons, her Davis niggers, distinct from her husband's stock. Auctions were ladies' parlors. The Savannah Republican advertised, ladies' days, where silk-gloved hands bid on likely girls for breeding stock. Breeding, that euphemism for coerced reproduction, was the shadow economy's pulse. Post-1808, with the Atlantic trade banned, planters turned inward, valuing women for their future issue. Enslaved mothers like F. H. Brown's grandmother birthed 26 children, swelling fortunes to 75 souls. In Georgia's cotton belt, mistresses like Sally Paul fattened infants on garlic to hurry grow for market. Ads seeking wet nurses, commodifying milk as currency. Frances Kemble's 1838 diary from a Georgia plantation laments the reproductive difficulties, malnutrition, overwork, yet notes mistresses intervening to preserve property value. A mercy laced with avarice. Sexual violence was the undercurrent, often unremarked. Elite white women, isolated in patriarchal cages, wielded power over enslaved men in ways that blurred consent into conquest. Inquiries journals Historical analysis posits factors: boredom, revenge against philandering husbands, or eroticized dominance. Cases abound. Sally Hemings' Jeffersonian entanglements echoed in lesser-known bonds, like the Pendarvis family's biracial slave owning in 18th-century Georgia, where mistresses bore children with chattel, only to enslave them. Eliza's claimings fictionalize this, but root in truth. Enslaved narratives, like Harriet Jacobs', detail mistresses' jealous rages turning to punitive intimacies. Folklore amplifies the eeriness. Georgia's Gullah Geechee corridors, coastal enclaves from the Sea Islands to the Low Country, preserved African spiritual survivals, Obeah rootwork, hoodoo charms blending Yoruba, Eken, and Catholic saints. Eliza's rituals echo these. Myrrh and nightshade from Caribbean imports, sigils akin to waves in voodoo. The Georgia Encyclopedia notes how planters feared conjuration, banning drums as devil's music, yet appropriated it. Hoodoo doctors, like those in High John the Conqueror tales, subverted bondage with root bags and crossroads packs. Eliza's curse, a white inversion, twisting black resilience into white terror. Legends cluster around real mistresses. The plantation mistress who bred slaves with her sons. A 1847 Wilkes County scandal, per contemporary accounts, mirrors our tale. Catherine Thornwood's ledger documented forced pairings with stepsons, yielding 19 children sold for profit. Though legal under Georgia's property laws, the enslaved had no reproductive rights. It scandalized the Atlanta Intelligencer, sparking divorce and dispersal. Eliza amplifies this with supernatural veneer, drawing from ghost stories like the Grey Lady of Blackthorn. A folk variant, a spectral widow haunting Bibb County roads, pricking travelers with invisible thorns. Culturally, this era seethes with trauma. The 1830s Trail of Tears displaced creeks, their medicine bundles cursing usurpers, echoes in Blackthorn's ancestral voices. Nat Turner's 1831 revolt rippled south, birthing vigilance committees that patrolled quarters like gulls. Abolitionist whispers, Frederick Douglass narratives smuggling south via the North Star-fueled resistance, as in Brother Elias, modeled on real circuit riders like Rev. Charles Colcock Jones, who preached benevolent slavery but sowed doubt. Yet the eeriness lies in authenticity's underbelly. Diaries like Mary Boykin Chestnut's reveal mistresses, dualities maternal to whites, monstrous to blacks. Jones Rogers cites depositions where women whipped their slaves with personal vigor, viewing them as extensions of self. Eliza's web symbolizes this, a psychological tether, exporting not just bodies but psyches, perpetuating trauma across borders. In blending fact and folklore, we unearth unsettling truths. Slavery wasn't mere economics, but a spiritual war, where power's perversion birthed hauntings real as any ghost. Blackthorn's fog lingers in Georgia's psyche, sites like Wormslow Plantation, where Gullah tales warn of haint mistresses. As we peel these layers, the narrative's chill deepens. Eliza wasn't anomaly, but archetype, her throne a seat on history's nightmare rack. Beneath the Gothic filigree of Eliza Blackthorn's horrors lies a labyrinth of symbols and psyches, a mirror held to humanity's abyss. This tale, Wanderers, is no mere recounting of antebellum atrocities. It is a scalpel dissecting universal fears, the devouring mother, the tainted inheritance, the soul's commodification. Let us wander these depths, where intellect meets the uncanny and analysis unearths bones. Symbolically, Eliza embodies the devouring feminine, a perversion of the Southern Belle into Lilith unbound. Her claimings, intimate violations preceding economic exile, symbolize slavery's core paradox: bodies owned, yet spirits untamable. Psychologically drawing from Jungian shadows, she projects her lineage's curse onto the enslaved, externalizing inner rot. The Hargrove Pact, a metaphor for generational trauma, where white women's inherited power dowers of flesh festers into monstrosity. As Rogers argues, Mistress's internalized patriarchy's violence, redirecting it downward. Eliza's rituals amplify this, her binding, a hysterical bid for control in widowhood's void. Thematic threads weave through cultural trauma. For the enslaved, claimings evoke the Middle Passage's spectral legacy: bodies shipped, souls adrift. Livia's hymns, Kofi's resistance, echo slave narratives' resilience, the survivance of Anishinaabe scholar Gerald Vizenor, where subjugated cultures conjure agency from ashes. Hauntings, then, are not supernatural, but psychoanalytic frauds, return of the repressed, where violated psyches manifest as poltergeists, thorns pricking the oppressor's conscience. In New Orleans floods or Alabama's cave-ins, we see Toni Morrison's Beloved, the ghost of Seith's infanticide as communal memory, here inverted, the soul's curses as collective revenge. Universally, the tale probes human nature's dual helix: empathy's erosion under power. Eliza's Sacrament horrifies because it humanizes the inhuman: her loneliness, her visionary madness, mirroring Arendt's banality of evil. Planters weren't cackling fiends but banal accountants, their ledgers Thornwood's real counterpart, reducing souls to columns. Yet the eerie lies in complicity: Harlan's trembling whip, the quarter's fearful silence, reflect Milgram's obedience experiments, authority's chain binding all. Connecting to broader fears, Blackthorn Manor symbolizes the cursed institution plantation as panopticon, per Foucault, where surveillance births paranoia. Eliza's web tethers spanning states, prefigures globalization's exploitations, human trafficking's modern webs. Psychologically, it taps erotophobia, the illicit gaze between mistress and slave, laden with racial sexual taboos, echoing Fanon's black skin. White masks, the colonized body as fetish, desire as domination. Intellectually ominous, the story questions inheritance's weight. Eliza's bloodline, dilution fear, a eugenic phantom presaging 20th century horrors, rooted in 19th century anxieties over miscegenation. Her claimings enhance value by infusing essence, a grotesque alchemy symbolizing cultural appropriation, white theft of black vitality. Hoodoo twisted to curse. Universally, it haunts parental legacies, the child burdened by ancestral sins, Oedipal chains binding generations. In human nature's mirror, we confront the void power's aphrodisiac, turning guardians to gorgons. Eliza's laugh amid flames. Nietzsche's abyss gazing back, where staring long enough births the monster. Yet hope flickers in Elias's vigil. Gems quill the intellectual's pen as exorcism, narrative as liberation. This tale connects cultural trauma to catharsis. By voicing the unspeakable, we unbind the web, though thorns remain. Ominously, it lingers in America's racial reckonings. Blackthorn's fog persists microaggressions as modern claimings, systemic sales of bodies via incarceration. The thematic throne, a seat of reflection where we confront what curses do we claim and at what soul cost. And so, as the harvest moon wanes over Blackthorn's spectral fields, we emerge from the thicket, thorns snagging our sleeves, the scent of blood and mirror clinging to our skin. Eliza Blackthorn, or her echo, for who can say where history ends and haunt ends, claimed not just bodies, but the very fabric of southern night. Her web, spun from silk and sinew, stretched from Macon's blocks to bayou shadows, ensnaring masters in webs of their own weaving. Livia's hymns silenced in New Orleans steam, Ezekiel's forge fires banking to haunt Alabama pits, Seller's daughter blooming into a curse that withered coastal fortunes, all threads leading back to that crimson chamber where a widow's whisper bound the damned. In the years that followed 1840, Blackthorn Manor decayed like a sloughed skin. Elias and his remnant fled north, their testimonies fodder for Garrison's liberator, though diluted by printers' fears. Jem, the chronicler, vanished into legend. Some say he penned incidents in the life of a slave girl under pseudonym, his Nothole visions fueling Jacob's fire. Harlan Crow, found swinging from an oak, whip coiled round his neck like a serpent's kiss, a thorn prick festering in his palm. The quarters stood empty, fields reverting to bramble, the big house a hollow shell where winds moan like orphaned children. Eliza herself. Sightings persist. A hitchhiker in widow's weeds on the back roads from Milledgeville to Savannah, her emerald eyes glinting in headlights or so truckers swear and dive bar tailors. In 1852, a Macon widow burned her inheritance 20 souls after dreams of thorn web strangling her bedsheets. In 1863, as Sherman's march scorched the earth, a Union scout reported a woman in black directing phantom fires, her laughter riding the smoke. Even today, Bibb County locals shun the ruins, calling it Widow's Thicket, where compasses spin and cell signals die, as if the curse mocks our modern chains. This lingering question haunts us, doesn't it, wanderers? In claiming every slave before selling them, did Eliza merely perpetuate the South's original sin, or did she unleash something primordial, a bloodline's backlash, where the oppressed stolen vitality rebounds as nemesis? Her rituals, born of Abia's stolen fire and planter Greed's cold forge, remind us power is a double-edged thame, cutting wielder as deep as victim. The enslaved, in their quiet rebellions, a hymn hummed low, a rune carved swift, wove-counter threads, unraveling the web from within. Yet the stains remain America's soul, pricked by thorns we cannot see, bleeding history into our veins. As you close your eyes tonight, feel the fog of blackthorn on your brow. Hear the rattle of distant chains. Taste the rust of rivers that carried the claimed. Does Eliza's whisper reach you, the binding holds eternal? Or do Livia's hymns rise, a chariot swinging low? Ponder this. In the throne's shadow, what parts of us have we claimed for others, and what curses do we carry unsold? Until the next descent, sleep with salt at your thresholds, thorns at your windows. The nightmares await their turn.